Morris the Motorcar. Morris the Motorcar had once been the smartest car on the road. His headlamps shone, his windows sparkled, and his paintwork gleamed. Whether it was an outing to the seaside or picnics in the summer, parties or trips into town in the winter, everyone was always so pleased to see him. But when he began getting rusty and his seat started to sag, Morris was sold to a man who mended motorbikes. He kept what he called his bits and pieces on the back seat. Then came the day when the man bought a brand new van. "Grandad will be having you, Morris," he said. "Your gears creak and your engine wheezes, but you won't be going far from now on." Morris tried hard not to mind too much, but all too soon the old man could no longer drive him around. He was dumped in the corner of a scrapyard. Poor Morris. All he could see were old washing machines, worn-out tyres, and every sort of rubbish you can think of. There was nothing to do, nobody to talk to. Being out in the rain meant he quickly got rustier than ever. Then his roof started to leak. Surely, old Morris thought, nobody could hate rain more than me, but he was wrong. Morris was so miserable, cold and tired, he hardly noticed two little mice paying him a visit. They needed shelter inside for a very special reason. The two mice were soon busy, chewing up bits of paper blown in by the wind and tearing strips of rag to weave with some of Morris's back seat. He didn't mind at all. Morris guessed that something exciting was about to happen. The way the two mice kept chattering and squeaking to each other, he could hardly believe he had so many friends, all at once. And the mice were not the only ones who decided to make their home with Morris. The moment sharp-eyed Mrs. Robin saw the old car, she knew that's where she wanted her nest. With a family of robins singing so sweetly all day, and the lively mice scampering around and playing in their nice little home, Morris decided he had never been happier. Then, one morning, everything changed. No birds sang, no mice squeaked and chattered. Surely, Morris told himself, his friends would not have left him so suddenly, but they had. Morris felt so sad. He was still trying to think what could have happened when he heard a tiny cry coming from the front seat. It sounded just like a tiny kitten, meowing. "So, that's why the mice and the robins left so suddenly," smiled Morris to himself, knowing how frightened they would be with a cat around. As for the kittens, it was plain they loved being with Morris. When they were not playing together outside, he could hear them purring as they slept underneath the steering wheel. The only thing that worried him was the thought of the kittens growing up. Would they leave him, he wondered. Already, they were wandering further and further away, mother cat as well. The family to which Morris had once belonged now seemed so far away. It was quite a shock to hear footsteps and a voice calling out, "Hey, come here everybody, see who I found." "It's Tabitha," cried the little girl. Morris could see her stroking the mother cat's head. "We told you we'd seen her near here, didn't we, Daddy?" Robert was sure she'd had her kittens. "And I was right," shouted her brother, climbing into Morris's driving seat. "Lucky she found this old car. Isn't it great, Amy?" Honk, honk. Amy was much too busy sounding the horn. Honk, honk. Robert and Amy played for a long time with Morris. He could tell they did not really want to go home, not even when their daddy called, "Come along, you two, Tabitha's new family is waiting." "We shouldn't mind having the car too," Morris heard Robert saying. His daddy laughed. But what was next, Morris didn't know. By the next day, he was so sad he hardly cared what happened to him. "Here's the old banger," said a voice, breaking into Morris's thoughts. "Engine and gearbox out, right?" "Right," came the reply. "Must be a spare parts job, I reckon." "Spare parts?" echoed Morris. "Don't say I'm to be broken up." But when his tights were levered off one by one and a crane hauled him high into the air, he knew it must be true. Morris shut his eyes tight. It seemed nobody wanted him anymore. But when he opened them again, what do you think? There were cheers from the back seat. "Good old Daddy," he heard Robert shout. He knew we needed the car for an adventure playground, Amy. But Amy was too busy swinging on one of Morris's old tyres. The end.